Good afternoon, gentlemen. Well, I like to take one step forward and 3 steps back. It's kind of the way I like to do it. And my humor is different. I'm finding that my humor is different than a lot of people, so it's pretty dry, and so, but it is just who my humor. So, I don't. Things I find funny, other people don't, and vice versa. So, but anyway, so just bear with me. I attempt humor every so often, but it doesn't always work out for me. So, why I say I took 1 step forward and 3 steps back. So I went ahead and put the interior striker panel in here, because I had this all set up thinking, okay, this is great. When they put that striker panel in there, put the striker in, went to shut the door and the whole thing. Well, this gap I wasn't that worried about down here at the bottom, and it's still tight. But I didn't like, when I shut it, I didn't like the fact that it kind of goes like this. Okay, now that's exaggerated tremendously. But if you take, I've got this gap down here right. Okay, so it's parallel. I actually made it a little bigger. It's bigger, which I don't care about because I can adjust that fine. So if you go off my tape line, which is, I'm going to assume it's pretty close. If you run this straight line right down the edge of that tape, it's a little bit, just a little bit off. And you can push this up against the door and the whole deal. But just a little bit. This panel just needs to come down just a little bit, like clockwise. So this panel up here, the drip panel, I don't know if you can see that because it's up high. But the drip rail there, and I'm going to show you guys here in a minute for the guys who are just starting to figure out how to put their quarter panels on. This might be their first or second attempt or whatever, and it's just kicking their butts. I would qualify myself as an expert 68 Camaro quarter panel installer at this point, as far as actually just putting it on the car. Because I've taken it on and off so many times, and after a while, you just become an expert. So, again, this is my tip of humor. Sarcasm. I guess sarcasm in my humor, but I'm pretty sarcastic. So, yeah. So let me show you what we've got here. So my thought and what I did is I've been out here all morning again. So what I did was I took the door loose. And here's another tip for you. This worked out really actually pretty good. If you're working by yourself, like 98.9% of us are probably doing, well, it's probably 99.9%. I think Matt has Jim, and we all know that everybody's jealous of that relationship. But I think he might be the only person that has a gym. I don't know where you can buy a gym. I don't know if they're giving them away somewhere. I've not been able to find a gym yet. I would love to find a gym. If you guys know where one is that I can have that's not already taken, because I realize that Matt's already got his and he's not giving him up. Anyway, if you can find me a gym, I would really appreciate it. So, that being said, I loosened all my bolts up here, hung the door in here, and you can take a ratchet strap. And you guys probably already know this. Like I said, everything that I come up with, somebody's thought of like 20 years ago. And I've also pulled these doors together here. So what I did, I just hung it up here and hung this edge right here down one of these holes like this. Okay. Then you can ratchet that up however high you want to, and it'll hold. I had one here and one here in the front, and so it's just suspended however I want. If I want to go up in the back a little bit, I just ratchet it up in the back. Thing about this, when you're doing these doors, you want to ratchet this up a little higher in the back, because when you tighten the bolts, it's gonna the weight of it's gonna drop it more than what you think. So if you've got it even like this is right here, it's gonna drop a little bit. So you want to come up a little bit with it. So just a little thing everyone already knows, I know, but I just a little tip that I kind of learn as I go along. And again, since I don't have a gym, I have to, do what I have to do here. So here's this. It's big up here, and it's small down here. So common sense says, let's take this door and kick it up this way a little bit. So that's what I try to do. Well, it makes the gap down there big, and then it just doesn't work. And that door only goes up so far. So then I go back to the drawing board and say, okay, let's make sure this is lined up. I actually even took that rocker and tried to push it up in the front some, thinking maybe this needed to go upwards a little bit. And it doesn't. It's where it is. It's just going to be that way. So now this gap is all good. This gap is tight. This gap is big. So this makes sense that you want to do this number. Okay, you just need a little bit, or you're going to remake this line. You can see here this gap is almost non-existent. Hopefully that show that. And it gets tighter as it goes down here. But that is kind of what it is. It's just not. And if I could come down a little bit more, I would. You can see here, this is pretty close, but there's still a little bit of a gap. I push back on this. I push down on this. I've done everything I can freaking imagine. So I even took the quarter panel off and took the outer wheelhouse off. Got in here, pushed this back, and I had this edge right here of the quarter panel without this outer wheelhouse in. I had it about 1/8 of an inch or so out farther than this. It actually brought this down and opened this up just a little bit. So I thought, okay, maybe that'll work. But I know that when I put my wheelhouse back in, it's gonna probably end up doing the same thing, which it did. It just brought it right back to where it is. Well, you can't push this in. I even loosened the little deal, thinking, man, I can kick that striker panel down at the bottom, and so where it'll let me push in. I even took my porter power here, put it from here to here, tried to push it over. It just is not going to do it. So looking at every other area like we have, this is all snug, this is beautiful, everything fits everywhere on this car. It fits super. There's no gaps in, and this is unusual to have or at least for me anyway, my experience, to have an outer rocker or outer wheelhouse that actually fits as nice and snug and tight without clamping it down everywhere as this one does. It is literally, if I pop these off, it'll pop out like this, but it stays snug. It's nice. I'm super, super happy with this. So everything, literally, everything is looking good. This line here is lining up dang near on the money. This panel needs to come out a little bit, but this thing's just been beat all the snot. So this is going to be replaced. Doesn't matter. But I could take a puller and pull that out to make it even out here if I wanted. But this line is really what I'm concerned about right now. It's pretty good up here, but as it comes down, it kind of dives in. So this needs to be pulled out. But like I said, I'm not concerned about that because I'm going to replace this panel. This thing is packed full of Bondo. You can see these body lines are just jacked because they've just packed it. For some reason, wrecked, whatever happened, you know. So, to me, probably on this car, one of the most important things that I'm dealing with is this body line. I want that body line like a laser. I want it straight. That just makes, to me, that detail makes this car. If you've got this body line that's all freaking wavy, and that looks horrible. But if you see some of these show cars, man, that body line is super crisp. The panels are just sharp. That's what I want. So it's super important for me to get this line straight line. So this panel has to come down, or that panel has to go up. Well, it can't because of what I'm dealing with at the bottom. I mean, this has got to stay right. Okay, like I said, it's a little big, but it's got to stay right. So, and I can fill that. I can put some rod on the end of this and fill that in. That's later on stuff. These little details, you can do that toward the end, and it's not a big deal. But getting this line lined up needs to happen now, in my opinion. Because before I lock this quarter panel down, I need to know that line looks pretty straight. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but it needs to be pretty straight, because you can do a lot with your, when you tape this off, when you're actually blocking it, you can block and make your lines all nice and straight and the whole deal. And I probably don't have this taped just exactly like it needs to be down through here, but it's pretty dang close through here. And this is lining up really nice. I'll hold the camera right, you can see that. So it's lining up just like it needs to line up. But then as it goes, it dives. Or as it goes this way, this body line would want to follow up high. And it's not severe, but it's enough that, like I said, you think, okay, this gap, this is common sensing out to say, that's got to close, that's got to come open. When that happens, this line is going to go down. It just has to. It just has to. But with everything in here nice and tight like it is, I cannot get that thing to move. So I'm going to pull this back off one more time. I'm going to go ahead and try to shake this a little bit more out and hope that it'll actually let it relax and come down just a little bit more. That's kind of my last resort at this point. But when I bring you back, I'm going to show you how to put this quarter panel on fairly quickly and fairly easily, so you're not wrestling with it for 20 minutes or whatever. I just figured out the quickest, easiest way to do it, and you will too. I mean, I'm just trying to save somebody a bunch of headache if you watch my videos before you're actually going to do your car. So, all right, I'll bring you back. All right, here we go. We're going to put this quarter panel back on. First thing you want to do is wrap around this side here. Second thing you're going to want to do is get this in the drip rail. Those two things right there, once you get that done, it hangs by itself. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Got that up in there like that. And I set it right up here close to this. Pop it into place, and now it'll sit. It's not going anywhere because it's hung in here. Okay, now make sure everything looks good up here. You just come back up to this area. This flange has to be underneath here, and this flange has to be underneath your deck filler. So I slide this whole thing forward and up like that. Make sure this is not catching on anything, so that you can slide that down and in. This little guy here needs to be bent up. I don't know if you can see that. Not bent up, it needs to be pulled up to where it's just clearing, because otherwise it'll get caught right there. So right there, all I have to do now is that, and it's in, it's done. Now you can just take your vice grips, pull it in there and crank it together. Now you can get a hold of it. It's hard to do one-handed. Let me try a different pair. There it goes. So, and then you put another pair up here. So you see everything's fitting tightly. It just fell right back into place. But for me, that's the easiest way I found to, what if I put that, oh, I did. I put a dent in that sucker. I sure did because of this. Dadgummit. Take that thing loose. That sucks. So, another tip, pay attention to what you're doing. Thank you. Yeah, I pushed that in there and it pushed up a little dimple right there. All right, that's good. It doesn't look too bad. We'll fix her. But anyway, so now you can go back and kind of fine tune everything. Make sure all your stuff slides together like it's supposed to. That whole deal like that. But yeah, that deal right there, once you get that in there, it's hanging by itself and you're pretty much free to kind of just walk around it and look. But I know that's probably a lot of guys are like, really? You're telling us that? But man, I know there's a lot of guys that have never done restoration and they're thinking about doing a quarter panel. And man, I had to learn the hard way. I just fought with it until I figured out, okay, this is the best way to do this. or at least for me. There's 100 different ways to do it, and there may be some better than what I just did, but it seems to go pretty quickly that way. When you take it back off, same deal. Drop these out. You're going to pop this back in, up and out, like that. It's the last thing you did. And then just pull it out a little bit like that, so it's free. Again, this is going to hang. Pull the front out, and you just pop this to where that comes out. You're going to pull that quarter pounder out a little bit, pop it like that. This pops out, and you're off, just like that. So, not trying to be a teacher by any means, but this helps you out, then that's good. There it is. Now let's get your current crank back together and see if that hammer knob that did anything to the front. Actually, I'm going to leave all this stuff off first, or get this pulled down. See if I can get anything done here. So let's see what she did. I really need to drop you down a little bit, but putting you in a bad spot there too. Alright, so just going to get this stuff all back in, press stuff in there. That. One pair of vice grips. Get those in. A pair of vice grips back here. So that's over the end. Snug. This is supposed to be 1.25 inch. Make sure that's good. You put your striker back in. I don't even tighten it. I just hand tighten it, and then I let the door adjust the striker for me. Just let it find center. And it looks like it needs to go in just a little bit more. So when I go to adjust this, try to keep it about the same spot as it was. It wants to move a lot, but it's just the way it is. I just snug it down again, and then we'll close her up again and see where it's sitting. You want it to not lift the door up or down, you want it just to close. Like that. Now go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. It's in too far, that's okay, doesn't matter. I still have the exact same issue. Still in too close here, and up too much there. Start it back and down. It's not going to help that gap any. It just needs to go down and back up a little bit. Looks like it can still come back just a little bit more, but the door down here is actually lined up. This door needs to be bent in, and the top up here needs to come out. So the door needs to be tweaked like that, which you can literally take your leg and your knee and crank it and try to kind of just torque it back. But be careful with everything. I mean, pushing your limits there. Striker's still up too high. Pretty close. Like I said, this still needs to come out. That's going to have to go in, but I'll have to work that. But it's fitting exactly the same. I'm just back to square one. I'm pretty well lost. Well, I'm about to call it quits for the day. I know that wasn't real educational and whatever, so give me a thumbs down. Tell me why you hated it. Well, don't even tell me why you hated it, because I know why you hated it. It was just basically a bullshit video, so I don't know why I'm even doing it. I'm not even sure I'll upload it. I might. But I'll watch it back and go, yeah, that pretty well sucked. Because I got nada done. So the lines, like I said, line up right in the center like they're supposed to, but this one seems to want to dive down a little bit. And again, it's just because that's kicked back that way. And you can see this gap up here is too big. And sure, I could fix this by closing the gap and doing all that, but that still doesn't keep this body line from diving. That literally has to come up and forward a little bit. And how to get that done, man, I don't know. I measured also, guys are asking me, I measured these frame rails. I measured from here to here, it's 20 and a 16th. Measured the other side, 20 and a 16th. These are square. All the wheels are sitting on the floor like they're supposed to. So the frame rails up and down are good. Front to back are good. So when they pulled them back out, they pulled them out pretty close. Because we talked about maybe this being hitting ass in, and it's actually caused the whole back of the car to drop. But man, everything's lining up too nice for all that. I mean, this is phenomenal. You would think if the whole back of the car would drop up, there'd be a half-inch gap right here, you know, or this line right here wouldn't be lining up like it does when I actually put it into place and clamp it. It's not clamped. But yeah, everything seems to be, like I said before, everything seems to be doing really well other than that freaking area up there. And I just cannot figure out what's going on. That gap there's pretty parallel. It's big, but it's parallel. So these body lines are lining up fairly close. So the door is basically the way it needs to be in the middle. Oh, actually, the door's the way it needs to be. This just needs to come down a little bit. Then I could adjust the door down a little bit to meet it. I don't know, maybe I'm splitting hairs on this, but again, I just want that line to do what it do. Well, it's doing what it do now, huh? I want it to do what I want it to do. I'm being bratty about it too. What the heck? Alright, man. See you guys. Alright guys, I'm shutting it down for tonight. Get a little look at it. The tire's a little kicked out on one side, but it's on block, so it's pretty much the best I could do for the day. I'm ready to walk away again. It's been several days of walking away, and everything seems to be fitting pretty well outside of this gap. Got a little bit bigger up here. This gap is still really small down here. So, and I moved the door around and I told you guys all that. You can see that this is lining up pretty much on the money. This line down the side is relatively straight. It still wants to point up, I think, a little bit, but at this point I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to do about that. Again, they probably weren't perfectly straight from the factory, but I'm trying to get it as close as I can. When I put the front fender on, you can see these gaps are real tiny. I don't even know if the door would actually open. The thing is the good thing about this is because of this gap here, I can move this door back and get pretty decent gaps, and hopefully don't even have to, modify. Well, won't have to modify up here. I'm obviously going to have to modify down here to move this over to get this gap consistent. And I can't move the door back until this is out of the way, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I'm walking away, and we'll try again another day. You guys have a good one.